But let's talk about those Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers and Mike Tomlin locked up yet another winning season in Pittsburgh. Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season in Pittsburgh. Can you guys wrap your heads like around that? The whole 10-year Mike Tomlin has been in a Pittsburgh Steelers head coaching role. He has never had a losing season. Wow, right? But right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers can still make the AFC playoffs. They can still make the playoffs. They can win, or this is how they can make the playoffs, right? They have to win, the Buffalo Bills have to lose, or the Jacksonville Jaguars have to lose. One of those, two of those three things have to happen, and bada bing, bada boom, the Pittsburgh Steelers are in the playoffs. I can see the Buffalo Bills losing, and I think they're going to beat the Baltimore Ravens. I think they're going to get into the playoffs. So with that being said, this is hypothetically speaking, they make it into the playoffs. They beat the Ravens, and the Buffalo Bills lose to the Miami Dolphins on Sunday afternoon, right? Hypothetically speaking. But would it be an overreaction that if the Pittsburgh Steelers make it into the playoffs, they're going to make a deep playoff run? It seems like every year, guys, the Pittsburgh Steelers are there, right? They are there either in the playoffs or they're just right there. We can get it, right? But it seems in a very, very long time that they just haven't had the, what's the word I'm looking for? Is it killer instinct to really prevail in the playoffs, to really get those wins? But like it seems like year after year, they're in the playoffs, but they can never really win anything. They never make any noise, right? So would it be an overreaction or a underreaction if the Pittsburgh Steelers make the playoffs that they can make a deep playoff run? Guys, this is an overreaction. This is an overreaction. Why? Because the Pittsburgh Steelers and Mike Tomlin remind me so much of, is it Marvin Lewis and the Cincinnati Bengals in the late 90s, early 2000s, right? Marvin Lewis and the Bengals were just good enough to not get fired. They were just good enough not to get a first overall pick, but they were just bad enough to never make it deep into the playoffs. And it seems like that's where the Pittsburgh Steelers are at right now. They are just good enough to have winning records. They are just good enough to never have a losing second season with Mike Tomlin. But they're just good enough to not ever get that top overall pick. They are not good enough to really make noise in the draft. But they're just bad enough to, they can't make any noise in the playoffs either. Guys, the Pittsburgh Steelers need a complete shakeup, like, honestly. I understand people are saying Kenny Pickett isn't the man, and if I believe, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Mason Rudolph has been named starter this week for the Ravens, and Mason Rudolph lead us to the playoffs, right, man? But the Pittsburgh Steelers have never really had that killer instinct in a very, very long time. Now, this is me as an outsider speaking in, trying to speak on the Pittsburgh Steelers organization type of things, and so this is just a outsider's perspective, but I feel like they're just good enough to not get fired, but they're not good enough to really be dangerous, make a threat, whatever, right? It's almost as if the Pittsburgh Steelers need a complete retool, right? They need to go to Lowe's. They need to get the Craftsman toolbox, throw that out. Give me that Snap-on toolbox, right? Let's upgrade a little bit, but right? It is what it is. XD Gamer says, yeah, the Steelers have another winning season, and exactly, right? John thinks Russell Wilson is going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. We can totally talk about that if you want, but he says this is a total overreaction. It's a total overreaction. The Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be a one and done. And that's what XD Gamer says. He says, Buck, they'll get eliminated in the first round. If the Pittsburgh Steelers make it into the playoffs, they would probably be, I think it's a 7 seed that they would be locked into, right? And so that means they would be playing a team like the Miami Dolphins. And I don't think that the Miami Dolphins and the Pittsburgh Steelers match up very well. Pittsburgh Steelers have a good defense, but that's about it. Offense is lackluster. They don't want to block for each other. They just want to get the ball and get the ladies, right? My man Wayne G is in the house. He says it's a huge overreaction. If they crawl in, they will be swiftly kicked out. They said, you can come on in, but we're going to check that ID. We're going to escort you right back out. Get out of town, says Wayne G. He says their quarterback situation is crap. What is crap about the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback situation? Do we not trust Kenny Pickett, or do we not trust the offensive play calling, the offensive scheme? Do we not trust Mitchell Trubisky, or is it the offensive scheme? What about the quarterback situation in Pittsburgh don't we like Wayne G? Because I know Hoffy, my man Hoffy, hates him some Kenny Pickett, and I don't know why. I mean, obviously he's like 5'9" with like 2-inch hands, like we get it, right? But I thought Kenny Pickett was a good, gritty guy for the Pittsburgh Steelers realm.